Hi, I'm Red Renchin, technical editor of the American Farriers Journal.
I'm Red Renchin, technical editor of the American Farriers Journal. Hi, I'm Red Renchin, technical editor of the American Farriers Journal. I've been a practicing farrier for over 40 years, a member of the Horseshoeing Hall of Fame and the Anvil 21 Club. For this video, what we're going to do.
We talked earlier about how passionate Red could get enthusiastic about things, but were there times too where he'd get a little hot under the collar a little bit, and what made him, what might set him off?
Me?
Yeah.
I could do that. You know, after you're there for so long and you make a mistake and you shouldn't have made that mistake, he let me know.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Yeah, sorry. Okay, well, sorry, doesn't do it. Those would set him off a little bit. In the beginning, when you did stuff like that, no, you're learning. But once you learned and it was dumb mistakes you made, he let you know about it. The other issue he had, and I don't want to say that he didn't get along with all of the vets, but there was some vets that said, you need to do this, and Red knew flat out, no. And sometimes, most of the time, he wouldn't do it. If he didn't believe it was worth doing, he wasn't going to do it. And he would tell him to get somebody else to do it. Every once in a while, if he was kind of on the border, he would try it. And then if it didn't work, he was upset with himself. And the one vet that I'll never forget when he first started with Joe Randolph was incredible. And if you saw those two together, it was incredible. Joe Randolph says, we need to do this. No. Red says, no, we don't. We got to do this. She says, no. And Red would say, I'm telling you, Joe, this is what we got to do. And Joe would say, all right, do it. If that doesn't work, you're going to change it to what I said. He goes, okay. And we would do it. And Joe would call him next day and say, Red, that's fantastic. That really worked. You're right. And then we'd meet up with her later on and she would say, you need to do this again because that really worked. And Red would say, well, we're looking at the radiographs and it's not quite the same. It's a little different. We need to do this. And Joe would say, why do you always argue? Why do you always have to be different? And Red said, well, I think it's different. And Joe said, okay, it worked last time, so do that. So we did it. And he'd get a phone call the next day from Joe. And Joe would be like, you get your ass back here right now. That didn't work. You got to change this and do what I said. And if people would see them together, you would think, wow, they don't get along very good. They got along fantastic. That's just how they worked. Joe trusted Red, and Red trusted Joe. And I remember Joe coming up and telling me when I was about to get off and go on my own, she said, you need to trust yourself because he taught you the right way. And when you have problems, you have my number. And sometimes I did have to give her a call. And it was my fault, but that happens. And I did the same thing when I had issues. I called Red. And sometimes Red would say, yeah, that's bad. You need to give Joe a call.
Tell us about probably his, maybe his biggest problem case that you can remember and how he solved it.
This was years ago when I was first starting out. Are you trying to get me in trouble with this?
Nope.
There was a horse with a vet down here that had laminitis, serious case, and called Red, and we got there, and it was really bad. And this was so many years ago, and the vet that was there called, and we were on a conference call, and I'm just sitting there listening because I was just beginning. And what he wanted to do, Red didn't agree with. He did not want to do that. And he had a little argument with the vet, and Red did finally say, okay, if that's what you want to do, then we'll do that. And we did it, and that same day, later that day, this horse was worse. And Red said way back when we first started the conversation that I don't agree with that. and said, who should you call? And he said, Bernie Chapman. That's who I would call. I met Bernie Chapman for the first time, picked him up at the airport, and Red was headed out to the barn. And I drove him from the airport to the barn. It was an incredible conversation when I first met this guy. But we got out there and it was bad. The horse was done. And there was really nothing you could do. It's the only time I saw a horse stand up and stand over there, and his feet were over here. One of his feet were over here. And Bernie just looked in there and said, yep, he's done. And that was the end. And that's the first time I met Bernie, and it was incredible.
What did Red think about Bernie's ideas for the heart bar for laminitis?
Red was with him 100%, and Red wanted to do that on this horse. And when I first started, there were several horses. Every time there was a laminitis issue, people called Red. So we were doing a lot of that. And I was learning a lot about that. And the biggest issue that Red said with the heart bars is you can put a heart bar shoe on a horse right now, and he walks away and he's much better. But the next day he can actually be worse because there was too much tension. So those were some of the issues with the heart bars, but Red was always for the heart bar shoe, not anything else. He was very much for the heart bar shoe. And every time Bernie came here for something, they would spend a day talking about it. And Bernie showing all kinds of pictures and issues and stuff. But it was pretty incredible. He was a fantastic guy to, when I first met him, I didn't know much about any of this. I was just starting for Red. That was that many years ago, 38 years ago, 39 years ago, 40 years ago, something like that. But yeah, it was a big difference, what we did and what Red wanted to do. And Bernie did say that was so bad that horse probably wasn't going to make it anyway. But Red still thought maybe the issue was what we first did with it.
When he retired, he joined AFJ as technical editor. What was that like for him and for you guys to be able to read his knowledge in the pages of AHA?
Well, I didn't have to read it because he was always telling me about it, so it didn't matter. But I think he was great for that. And I don't know for sure, but I think when he first started, he was still shoeing some, but he was slowing down doing that and doing more for the Farriers Journal. But he loved it. He talked about it all the time.
He'd get to do the thing that he liked to do the most, was just travel around and hang out with other farriers.
And he talks a lot, so that's perfect for him. I mean, he used to say that to me. You're a talker. And every time you see him somewhere, you think, I'm a talker. Listen to that guy over there. And you'll be sitting, if he's the moderator in some of these rooms in Cincinnati, and I'm just sitting there and there's people sitting around me and they're like, wow. Do you know who that guy is? No. Well, you'll get to know him now. And he was a moderator a lot in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a talker. He was good.
Yeah, he was my first shoeing for a living. I went to the NEAP symposium in Norfolk, Virginia, and Darren Owen was our first. And that's, that's kind of the thing with Red. I mean, he was a mentor to farriers, but he was a mentor to me too, I mean,
he was to a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was neat, and that whole trip kind of dovetailed in the sense that, I learned how to do a shoeing for a living with him, what to look for. And the first one was great because, he did with me what he did with you guys. We sat down, we talked about what was important. During the course of the day, he was elbowing me. This is important. He just kind of whispered under his breath, and I still am an introvert a bit. So, you know, when I would have a question, well, why would he do that? He goes, I don't know, ask him,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
And so that kind of made me get out of my, he goes, I'm not going to be here on the other ones. So you got to ask, you got to learn to ask now. And, you know, the thing is that I'd been a reporter for 25 years to that point, or 20 years to that point. So I wasn't adverse to asking questions, but it was a whole new realm. I wasn't asking a cop why, you know, what happened over here. I'm now asking a farrier why you put that shoe on. So the dynamic for me was different, you know, so I had to break down some barriers, but with, you know, and then we went to the symposium, and that was my first real exposure to him in a conference setting. Because now it was, do you see that? Do you see that? You know?
That was him.
And you know, that was where I first learned the enthusiasm from him, you know? So what was it that made him so unique to everybody else in the trade?
He was very cooperative with everything and anything. And that's what, to me, that's what made the biggest difference. When you go someplace and somebody's, I mentioned this before, and they start something, he'd be the first one in there to get dirty and try that. And, you know, like, whoa, wait, now how do you do that? He always would jump right in there, always. And kind of bothered me because when I was first starting with him and we went somewhere, he's like, here, get in there. He'd grab me by the shoulder and get in there. Like, I don't want to do that. Yeah, get in there. That guy did a clinic somewhere, and he said, he trimmed a foot, and he said, I want 10 people with a piece of paper. I want you to tell me if you think this foot is balanced. If not, is it high on the, you know, inside, outside, where is the issue? And Red right away grabbed a piece of paper and handed it to me and said, get in there. Like, I don't want to do that, get in there. Okay, and you pick it up. And then I look at him, and he goes, what do you think? I'm not sure. Well, look again. And then I ask him, and he says, I don't know, you put down on the paper what you think. I'm doing it too. And there was 10 of us, and we all wrote, there was hardly any of them that thought that foot was balanced. And then I forget his name, he passed away now. He said, okay, everybody, what do you think? I think that foot is perfectly balanced. And then Red right away said, not to me. And he said, I'm not talking to you. And Red said, yeah, but I got a piece of paper here and I'll tell you what I think. And then mine was different than Red's, and everybody's were a little different. Some were the same. And again, everybody said, well, what does that mean? Well, Red's a good horseshoer. If he didn't think it was balanced and it was balanced his way and it'd be sound, it's sound the way I do it. That just tells you how these horses can do this. I mean, they can put up with a lot of differences. But that was Red. He'd jump right in there all the time, right away. And if he did disagree with him, which he did, then they'd talk about it. Mm-hmm. You tell me why you think it's balanced this way, and everybody else is standing around listening to you talk about it. He was always do that. It's not that he disagreed with you, but he's going to tell you what he thinks. And he might be wrong, but he's still going to tell you what he thinks. And then when they prove that he's wrong, he would just admit, oh yeah, okay, you're right. But no, if he didn't agree, he challenged everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I see a lot of farriers deal with. They just start working on the horse. They don't watch it walk before they touch the horse. And then they end up having to own the lameness that had nothing to do with whatever they did that particular day, because they didn't happen to they didn't pick up that the horse was lame before they even started working on it. You know, but I mean, this situation is different, but it's an important lesson so that you don't end up getting thrown under the bus for something that you didn't do.
Well, I remember years ago, Red would watch the horse walk. Now, if he never did the horse, it's the first time, he would watch it go, then he would shoe it. And then he started telling customers when they wanted him to watch the horse go, he said, no, I don't really want to see it go now because I didn't shoe it and I don't know what they did. So I'll shoe it my way and then I'll watch it go the next time. And if I have to make changes, then I will make them because I know what I did to him this time. And that pretty much is how he stayed with it. He didn't care how they walked when he didn't see them, unless it was really a drastic change. Now, if he shod the horse for the first time and he completely changed the way it was done, then he would watch it go before he did it. And that was years ago too. I remember that. When I called Red, I'll never forget this, was a horse up in Plymouth. He drove up to Plymouth and looked at this. And first thing he said to me was, thank you. You made the right phone call, calling me. And then Red said to the owner, I'm sorry, he's right. This horse needs to see the vet. And I told her you should have the vet come out, but let me have Red take a look at it. And then Joe Randolph she drove down from Plymouth to Red's house. And we did that at his house. And Red said that was one of the biggest hoof resections he had ever done. And I never seen him do a hoof resection that big when I was still working for him. But when he's doing this, I'm thinking, oh my God, Red, what are you gonna do? You can't take all that foot off. I ain't gonna be able to get a shoe on there. And he said, yeah, we're gonna get a shoe on there. Well, he got a shoe on there. He made one of those, what do they call it? The monkey, whatever, with that band that goes up and screws in the top band. I'm like, what if he gets that shoe off? Red says, you deal with it, not me. I don't know how to do it. And the horse went back up to Plymouth, and that shoe stayed on there. And then Red said, don't wait 6 weeks. In 4 weeks, you got to redo it. And I said, can you come up to Plymouth with me in 4 weeks? Yeah, well, we'll see. And when we got to 4 weeks, he couldn't. He was busy. And he said, but let me know. And I called him when I was there, and I did it, and I reset it. And it turned out fantastic. But if it wasn't for Red, it wouldn't have worked. And Joe Randolph is the one that was there when we did that resection. And it was incredible. And the horse might still be around, I don't know. That was many years ago too. But he always said the same thing. Call me and I'll help you. And if I can't, and I don't know if you remember that horse that when I first started, I shot this horse and it came up lame. I shot it like 5 o'clock at night. The lady got there at 8 o'clock and it was lame. It was turned outside and it was icy. And she called me and I went there and I'm thinking, did I stick him? I don't remember. I don't think so. I couldn't figure out what I did wrong, but it was lame. And I changed it and I put a pad on, I put hoof pack on, didn't charge her for anything. I did this like 3 times. And Red said, let me come take a look at it. And Red came and looked at it. And Red told her, it's nothing that Mark did wrong. This is shod right. You need to get a vet to come out and take a look at it. Well, the vet that she had come out and look at it didn't know anything wrong. And Red said, get a second opinion. She drove down to Joe Randolph, got it out of the trailer. It took 5 steps. And Joe said, it's lame in the back end. Like the back end? It looked like lame in the front. And Joe said, it's because it's lame in the back. So it had a busted pelvis. When I finished shoeing it and turned it outside, it slipped and fell on the ice and broke its pelvis. And they had to put the horse down. And that was because of Red. I mean, I couldn't believe that. That's when Joe Randolph told me, she said, come on, you got to stand up for yourself. You didn't do anything wrong with this horse, and you came here and did it 3 or 4 times, didn't charge or anything, and it was nothing you did wrong. Yeah. You called Red. He said you didn't do nothing wrong, and you still put up with this. You got to learn to stand up for yourself. That's what Joe Randolph told me. And I thought, wow. Yeah, that was a long time ago too, but Red helped me there too. He helped me with so many things. Yeah. I mean, it was just incredible.
He was instrumental in what I do now, Here it comes.
Happens to me all the time.
He always, well, like you, he took the time.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we'd sit in the office and talk for hours.
Yeah.
There were sometimes there were great conversations, and sometimes they weren't fun. But he was always honest. Like I said, when we went to Virginia, I wouldn't have been able to do that without him. without doing that shoeing for a living without him. It's just so difficult to come in as someone who has spent his entire career in newspapers to understand. I have no idea. I didn't know what a stifle was. You know, I mean, how am I supposed to ask this incredibly knowledgeable farrier, Darren Owen? You know, I didn't even have a clue where to even start. You know, I mean, I did stupid things too, and the photo that became the cover of that issue is the December 2014 issue. It's a beautiful photo of Darren dressing the foot. I got that by laying down on my back in front of the damn horse, shooting up. And Red didn't have time to react. I just did it, you know. And then I got up and he goes, "You got a death wish, kid." And
I'm sure he did.
Yeah, and I don't do that anymore. And he taught me, that that's, you really gotta, you can't trust the horse. And and then we went out one other time with Chris, and I learned a lot from him there too. You know, he
With Chris?
I'm going to pronounce his name wrong again.
Adix?
Adix, yeah.
Oh, okay.
With Red had me go out with him, and just him taking the time to invite me to go out with him one day while he was just going to consult. Things like that. I'll never forget that.
What did he mean to AFJ and to the Hoof Care Summit?
Man, he was everything. I mean, he gave you insights that we didn't have. He's a farrier. He knows exactly, what other farriers are thinking. He's going to poke holes in the things that we were talking about doing. You don't want to do that. He brought the insight. He brought credibility to us that we didn't otherwise have. The ability to sit with him at different times, whether it was at the event, before the event, or after the event, and have him give us his thoughts on what we did, good, bad, and different, was invaluable. The thing with Red, he always put everything into it. I mean, what was great was he would write an article, and then he'd come into the office to give it to us, and he didn't email it. It was on a Word document on the computer, but he'd bring his whole laptop in, and we'd go, and then manually we'd go through this folders of photos of all these feet. Oh, I think we need to use this one, and this one's okay, but if you can avoid using it, it's okay. And then he just go. The whole process of trying to understand his thought process, because I'm still a rookie when he's doing this, and so being able to, he put everything into it. He didn't do anything halfway. It was always something that he was really proud of. So when he would put these articles together, he genuinely wanted to know how we did, and he wasn't asking me from the perspective of hoof care. He wanted to know about the writing aspect of it. That was the one thing I had that I might be better than him at, but it wasn't. He was a pretty good writer.
Well, how would you describe Red to someone who never met him?
Oh boy, I got a kick out of how giddy and happy he was. We sat there at the AFA convention one year, it was 2014, and there was 5 or 6 of us at the table, and he didn't stop laughing the entire. I mean, he was giggling the entire reception, and I started to get a little self-conscious, because I was afraid that people they couldn't hear because he was giggling. The whole 2 hours giggling. That's all he was doing. It was funny. I had, like I said, worked in newspapers for about 20 years at that point, and so this popped up, and my wife saw it, and she still to this day jokes that she got me this job. I didn't have anything to do with it. And so the position was open. I applied for it, and I had always enjoyed horses. Always from the youngest age. I think the first horse I saw was probably Lone Ranger Silver, and that was sort of the thing that captured my imagination, and so in third grade there was this thing that I had to do where you had to pick something and to do a report on, and I did it on horses. So I'd always had that interest. So in high school, my dad came to us. I have two other brothers, and my dad says, you can have a choice. You can either have a horse or you have dirt bikes, but you got to vote on it. And so whoever had the most votes would get that. And I was the only one who picked horses, so we got dirt bikes. But it's probably best for that horse that we never got it, because I didn't know squat about him. And I probably would have killed it, overfed it, give it laminitis or whatever.
That's what surprised me when I first got hired by Red, when he asked me, what do you know about horses? And I said, hay comes in this end and apples come out this end. He said, that's perfect. That's just how I want it.
Yeah. So that was the when that job came out open, and I didn't know what a farrier was, but I knew it had to do with horses. I had to figure it out. But I will say that when I saw, and I've told this story before, but when I saw the job, and I thought, well, how am I going to stay busy? There can't be that much to write about. You're putting shoes on horses. What else is there?
Staying busy yet?
Yeah. That hasn't really stopped since then. 10 years in,
and it won't.
No.
Yeah.
No. There's never a dull moment.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for doing this. I really appreciate it. Sharing your
very
experiences
welcome.
with Red and
He was absolutely phenomenal. He was so important to me. It was even beyond shoeing horses. Yeah. I mean, he was always correcting me about this and that. Had nothing to do with shoeing horses. Like, are you my dad? Kind of. Yeah, he was great. And I never would have made it when I did leave. I know a lot of farriers have. I never would have made it on my own once I left without the help that Red gave me. Yeah. He was phenomenal. Yeah. And a great instructor, great teacher. To put up with me as long as he did, that's pretty incredible. Yeah. Great man.
How are you today, Red?
I am very good. Never been better. In fact, you've made my whole day here.